Jamaree Caldwell has made his decision, and he's off to the NFL draft. What's next for the Oregon defensive line? I'm going to project the impact for the three most recent Duck transfers coming into Eugene. Let's get it rolling. Welcome to That Show Out West for That Team Out West, an unbiased, neutral observer's view of Oregon Ducks football. I'm Ted LaRue. Before we start talking some ball, I got to offer up some thank yous. We're just 2 weeks into this thing? I've done 4 episodes of this program, and we're already over 100 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you. For those of you who are coming along for the ride, go tell one of your Duck friends out there that this is the place to be. We are also over 100 followers over there on TikTok. We're over 300 followers on X. This is going to be the first episode available on audio platforms on Spotify, hoping to get over on Apple fairly soon as well. We're going to be on Instagram. So wherever you are on social media, wherever you scroll, we are going to be there. So make sure you follow TSO Dub. And once again, make sure you tell a friend so we keep on growing and reaching more Oregon Duck fans just like yourself. All right, let's talk some ball. Jamaree Caldwell had a decision to make, and he made that decision. He is off to the NFL draft. I want to say this before I maybe get into the effects and how it's going to affect the Oregon program, certainly going forward. Could he have come back for one more year because of the JUCO exemption, because of the lawsuit that's going on that was started with Diego Pavia for JUCO kids? Yes, he could have. But he's projected, I think, to maybe be a mid-round pick, considering his size and considering his agility and how nimble that he is on his feet. I think he's going to make an NFL team very happy. He can certainly be a space eater at the next level, no question about it. Could he have come back and worked his way into a first round, maybe an early second round type of situation like Derek Harmon kind of finds himself right now? Yeah, he could have, but thumbs up to you, Jamaree. Good luck to you on the next chapter of your football journey at the highest level. Now, we got to talk about how this affects Oregon going forward on the defensive line. I talked about how before I say, hey, if Jamaree is able to come back, that certainly helps the depth at the defensive tackle position. Now I think you've got some questions to answer. But it is also Amari Washington o'clock. I think this is a great opportunity for Amari Washington, who played all 14 games last season, who was certainly in the rotation after the aforementioned Jamaree Caldwell, and after Derek Harmon. He was in that rotation, that next man up, and he certainly showed some flashes. He certainly made some plays. Now it's time for him. It is his time to be able to take over on the interior of that defensive line. And I think Bear Alexander now becomes maybe an even bigger pivot point for this Oregon defensive line. Now I think it's maybe a bigger priority for him to step up and get more of that potential in this 2025 season. If you can get a lot out of Bear Alexander, which maybe hasn't happened in his stops at Georgia or USC yet. But if Tosh Lapoy, Dan Lanning, Tony Tubeote, if this coaching staff can get the most out of Bear Alexander, that's going to be a really good tandem. But right now, it's more of an if with Bear. We'll see. If that group, if that pairing is playing at a high level, you combine Bear Alexander with Amari Washington, and then, of course, Mateo Uiagalelei, who will likely plug into that Jordan Birch spot. You got to be happy with that. I think that's a really good starting point on the defensive line for the Oregon Ducks. But now what happens to Oregon up front as far as the depth goes? Once you get beyond those two, Now you're kind of, like I mentioned before a couple of episodes ago, with the secondary, where you're really banking on these young players that you've been able to recruit, these high-level players that you've been able to recruit over the last couple of years, that they step up, they prove it during spring ball, they really progress going into fall camp, that they can certainly be in the rotation. You have a guy like a Terrence Green. He played in 7 games last season. Then you go to some of these younger guys on the other side that haven't played a ton so far in their Oregon career, but they certainly do have a very good recruiting profile. We'll see if they develop. Guys like Zadavian Sims, Tioni Gray. I really like Aiden Breland. Aiden Breland, a 5-star. He was a freshman this past season. I think he's a guy that you need to be able to continue to watch out for to maybe be in that rotation and really step up. Jericho Johnson, he's just a big body. Maybe it's going to take him a little bit more time to get to that level, or maybe he really takes some big steps up here this next level. But those are some of the guys I think that you got to watch out for right now. I would be curious to see how they evaluate, especially through spring practice, where these young guys are. Is this a position group where they want to go get one more veteran guy out of the transfer portal? My hope is that after spring practice, after all of this time goes by, my hope is that they look at these young players and it says, hey, we feel really good about where we're at. We don't have to go into the transfer portal of the defensive line. That's what I hope. But maybe if Bear isn't, towards his ceiling like they want him to be in a possible starting role, maybe if these younger guys don't step up, maybe like they anticipate, or maybe is hoping, like I talked about before, this could be a position where maybe they could dive into one more in the spring transfer portal as well. Let's talk, speaking of transfers, let's talk about the 3 latest transfers and how I kind of project their impact to be in the 2025 season. Let's start first, I think, with the highest impact player of them all, Makai Hughes. Makai Hughes. I watched this guy on tape and I love it. High impact. I rate him and I project him right now. He is very clearly a plug and play RB1. Jordan James is out. Makai Hughes is in. It's as simple as that. No need to overcomplicate this thing. At Tulane, he rushed for over 2,700 yards and 22 touchdowns in his freshman year and his sophomore year over at Tulane. And I watched this kid on film, and I love what he can provide. He's great at shedding tackles. Take a licking and keep on ticking. That's what Makai Hughes is certainly all about. And one thing that really stood out to me when I watched him at Tulane, when he's able to, he has a good amount of patience to be able to find a hole. But when he's able to find it, and then when he's able to accelerate that, his acceleration, his change in speed is ridiculous. To be able to go from that where he's finding the hole and he's trying to use his eyes and his vision to find the right spot. And once he finds it, boom, boom, he's able to use his speed to get to the next level. I absolutely love to see that. And when you look at the run game for the Oregon Ducks, I think that this could be a pretty physical running game next season if Noah Whittington is back. You have the combination of Whittington and Makai Hughes, and then you have a spell back with someone like a Dewan Riggs. I really like what this run game could provide. Certainly, I think it could provide some relief early in the season for Dante Morris. He's kind of getting his feet wet as the starting quarterback. So I think this run game is going to be very, very good next season. And I think another big reason why this run game is going to be good is because who I have as my second impact transfer, and I have high impact for this guy as well. Let's talk about Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard coming over from the USC Trojans. Many say he was the best offensive lineman for USC, definitely last year and maybe the last 2 years as well. He was the top interior offensive lineman available in the transfer portal. And we'll talk more about these other transfer portal offensive linemen that the Ducks have taken so far this cycle. But here's been the thing with Oregon. Here's been the thing with Dan Lanning. He's like, well, we have a position of need, a group of need in the offensive line. I am just going to handpick the best in the interior. I'm going to handpick the best at tackle, and that's exactly what he's done. You look at Emmanuel Pregnon playing 26 games for USC over the last 2 years and allowed a goose egg in terms of pressures in 2024. He is a great run blocker, gets a lot of leverage, and you just watch him on tape. I was able to get some tape on him in the USC-Washington game, and he just stonewalled a lot of people. Like when they pull him out to the outside, he's able to get there fairly quickly and kick those guys out. And that's, I think, going to really provide a lot for this run game, certainly as well. So a great run blocker, a great pass blocker. I think there's an opportunity for him to certainly be the best offensive lineman for Oregon this next season. So there's a lot of exciting things with Emmanuel coming in as well. You look at the interior of the offensive line, the center and the two guards, and I'm starting to get excited, I think, about that. And that's why, kind of going back to Makai Hughes and Noah Whittington in this run game, that's why I get excited about the potential of what this run game can be next season, especially the interior run game. Of course, we mentioned Emmanuel Pregnan. He is high impact because I expect him to be a starting guard from day one on this Ducks offensive line. But you have Iapani Lalaolu, also known as Pancho, at center, Davey Oli over there, Iuli over there at guard as well. The thing about Dave is, Marcus Harper, he came in for Marcus Harper. I think Harper was injured during the Michigan game, middle of the season at some time, and then he comes in, and then he's playing better, and he's getting a lot more snaps than Marcus Harper as this season progresses. So I think that's a good sign at the guard position, certainly for next season. Will Matthew Bedford get a medical red shirt? Right, he's started multiple years at Indiana before coming to Oregon. All of a sudden now, if you get Matthew Bedford back, you've got 4 guys that you feel really good about in the interior of the offensive line. And now maybe you can mix and match, and you can certainly create a lot of depth in there as well. I think the question is at tackle. Now here's the thing. Wait a minute, Ted. You brought in 2 of the top tackles in the transfer portal. You are correct. These are 2 tackles coming from the group of 5 level. Right? Alex Harkey coming from Texas State, Isaiah World coming from Nevada. You watch their tape? Yeah, it certainly looks like they're really good players and they're going to be able to be good in pass protection. But going from that level to a Power 2 level to going up against Big Ten edge rushers is a little bit different. How are they going to be able to translate? I think that's one of the big questions, I think, for the Ducks as we approach spring practice and eventually fall camp in the 2025 season. Now, you took 3 transfers on the offensive line. Now, you had a veteran offensive line this past season, of course, with the tackles. Josh Connerly is going to be late first round, maybe a second round NFL draft pick. You had a Johnny Cornelius. We already mentioned Marcus Harper. It was a very old and veteran type of offensive line for the Ducks in some spots last season. So you're going to look to flip that with some transfers. But this is a group, I think, that needs to continue to recruit really well and bring in great to elite level players on this offensive line. You look at this 2025 class, they brought in a guy like Zaire Addison, who's a high 4-star, top 100 type of kid. Douglas Utu, a 4-star, top 175 type of kid. How about Dimitri Manning, 6'6", 240 pounds as well. And they've been doing pretty good the last 2 years in terms of recruiting the offensive line, but I think this is a position, there's a lot of bodies. I think that's the great thing, right? They've recruited some 3-star guys, some 4-star guys. I think there's a lot of opportunity for competition throughout spring practice and going into fall camp. I feel fairly solidified what the starting offensive line is going to be, and I already talked about those guys. But I think the competition is who's going to really step in line to be those number 2 guys, to be those backups this year, and then maybe play their way into a starting role in something like 2026. Because Emmanuel Pregnon has 1 year of eligibility. I believe both tackles have 1 year of eligibility left. If that's wrong, please correct me in the comments below as well. So now this is an opportunity for those guys to really take a step up and be the main guys for the future on the offensive line, so the Ducks don't have to rely as much on the transfer portal up front as well. All right, let's finish with our last transfer. I have him as a medium impact, and this is Malik Benson, the wide receiver. He was formerly the number 1 JUCO player in the country. And because he was a former JUCO player, he could be around Eugene, Oregon for a while. So Malik Benson from JUCO, he went to Alabama for a year. That was in 2023, last season. he had to endure what they were doing over there at Florida State. When I watched Malik Benson on tape, there's one thing that's perfectly clear. Guy's got speed. And if there's one place you want speed, it's Tracktown, USA. I think he blends really well into this offense. He ran a 10.4 100-meter dash in high school. But I think he fits really well because I kind of watched him in a few situations over there at Florida State. Screen passes. We know Will Stein loved the screen passes, maybe to the detriment of Oregon and maybe some of the Oregon fans towards the end of the season. But, you get it to him in a short passing situation and a concept, and you get him in space, he's got the speed to be able to make the play and keep the chains moving and create some positive momentum for the Oregon offense in that situation. And he's also got the speed to be able to, hey, just run, just go straight, go ball, over the top, and then have Dante Moore deliver him the football. So I think he's going to certainly blend well into this wide receiver room. But I put him at medium impact. 38 catches, 473 yards, 2 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons at 2 different schools. I put him at medium impact because when I look at the wide receiver room, very confident Evan Stewart is going to be wide receiver 1. Okay, I think Evan Stewart could be a 1,000-yard guy. There was no 1,000-yard receiver on the Oregon offense in 2024. Maybe Evan Stewart will be more like and have a role like Troy Franklin had as the true number 1 guy. And Troy Franklin had over 1,400 yards when Bo Nix was the quarterback as well. So I think Evan Stewart is going to fit into that role. And I actually feel very confident that DeCorian Moore is going to step onto the field as a freshman and play and be a big-time contributor. Outside of those 2 guys, I think there's a big crowd for who is going to step up and be wide receiver 2. Who's going to be that first depth guy in this Oregon wide receiver group? Because I'm just going to list off a lot of names, and I think Malik Benson is in this group. Justice Lowe, Jeremiah McClellan, Kyler Casper, Gary Bryant Jr., Jurion Dickey. Those are names out there that Oregon is expecting to step up this season. I don't think you know. I certainly don't know who's going to step up. I think we're going to find that is one of the most intriguing things as we look forward in the next few months as we approach spring football. And then after that, as we go into fall camp. Who's going to replace Trayshawn Holden? Who's going to replace Tez Johnson? That was like my very first edition of TSOW, was talking about the loss of Tez Johnson and how and who was going to step up for the Oregon Ducks. I look at all of those guys that I mentioned. Could I see Jeremiah McClellan stepping up into a big role? Yeah, I could. Could I see Jurion Dickey being healthy and a bigger body stepping up opposite of Evan Stewart? Yeah, I absolutely could. I could see a lot of these guys stepping, like Kyler Casper, before he got injured last season, was playing a fairly significant role. Gary Bryant was injured most of this season. If he's healthy, he could maybe, as the veteran, step into a big-time role for the Ducks next season. Like, when I look at those guys, and I think what I'm about to say for Malik Benson goes for, I think, a lot of these guys, if not all of these guys. I could see Malik Benson being the number 2 wide receiver on this team. I could see Malik Benson being the number 6 wide receiver on this team. Just like I could see the same for Jeremiah McClellan or Jurion Dickey or Kyler Casper. I think there's a crowded room. And once again, I said this about the offensive line. I said this about the defensive line with the young players. I think a crowded room creates competition. And Dan Lanning has said he thrives on competition and he wants his guys to be able to thrive on competition. So I'm excited for Malik Benson to get his opportunity in this room, but I put him at medium impact just because I'm not sure where he's going to sort out in this room with a lot of pretty good talent and a lot of opportunity for guys to be able to step up and be a big-time playmaker for Dante Moore in this offense. So that is what I think of these 3 incoming transfers. What do you think? And then what are your thoughts on the defensive line? Leave all of that in the comments below. This has been That Show Out West.